Hello everyone, this is Gaurav, ex-McKinsey consultant and career coach to top consultants and consulting aspirants across the globe. And welcome to Unfiltered, a podcast brought to you by Being Consultant, the world's biggest platform of problem solvers. In this particular podcast, we are trying to go very up close and personal with the best consulting mind across the globe to understand their insights about consulting career, their career journey, the kind of decision that they took which shaped their career so that we can crack the consulting career code from them. Today's guest is truly multi-talented professional. Imagine someone failing in engineering, of course resulting in a very low GPA, but despite of that, securing position in McKinsey. Not just that, but going fast track, also securing a company sponsored MBA while at McKinsey. That's just one part. Parallelly, the same person also does modeling, and to the extent that she represents her country in Miss World. And that's our guest, Remona Moodley, an ex-McKinsey consultant from South Africa and US office, who is currently devoting her time in democratizing the consulting toolkit through her platform called Master the Toolkit. Welcome, Remona. So thanks a lot, Remona. Thanks for being here on Unfiltered by Being Consultant, and also over the last week mentoring the Being Consultant community. It's great to have your advice. It's great to know your journey. And part of it we would like to cover in today's conversation. Yeah. So why don't we start off by you introducing yourself to your journey?
Yes, I wonder how far back I should take you, but let me take you all the way back. So
Sure.
I was born and raised in South Africa, and people always ask me when they see that I'm of Indian origin, it's usually very confusing about, wait, how are you South African? But South Africa has a massive, massive Indian diaspora community.
Hmm.
And it's a very special community in that, apartheid had a big impact on the development and upliftment of Indian people in South Africa. So when people see me, they're always like, oh, your parents are engineers or doctors or something. But that was never the case. Sadly, because of apartheid, they weren't allowed to go to university. So I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad was an entrepreneur. And so I didn't grow up with this very strong academic focus. And as a kid, I wasn't very strong academically until one day I could see how the kids around me in class would just get so much more respect. Like
Mhm.
if you left your homework at home and you came to class and said you forgot your homework at home, if you were one of the smart kids, the teachers would believe you. If you were me, they would say, yeah, right, and send you to the principal's office. So I
Okay.
decided one day to start studying hard because I wanted some of that power and credibility that came with intelligence. So flipped it around one day, then got really obsessed with math and science. That led me to loving problem solving.
Mhm.
And when you think problem solving, you think, okay, I'm going to be an engineer because engineers solve problems. So I chose to study electrical engineering and very, very quickly realized the types of problems that engineers solve are not necessarily the problems that I want to be solving. And luckily, stumbled upon consulting. And
Ah,
that
okay.
became this is perfect for me. This is what I want to do.
Okay. That's interesting. I think you spoke about you stumbled onto consulting. Can we know a little bit more about that? What exactly happened, and how did consulting happen for you?
Yes. Okay. So I was in university studying engineering. Part of our program was that we had to do internships during the vacation periods.
Mhm.
And my engineering degree was paid for by this steel company in South Africa. It's very, very common in South Africa if you choose to study something in STEM that
Hmm.
companies will pay for your undergrad degree because the skills are so short. In South Africa, everyone wants to bag talent early. So I would have to work for this company for all of my vacations during my undergrad. And I hated it. I mean, I don't know who would like it. Being at a steel plant, it's dusty, dirty. There was ammonia in the air, so we'd have to wear these gas
Wow.
masks.
Mhm.
It literally felt like hell. I mean, there was like molten metal everywhere. It was hot. It was dirty. I mean, more power to the engineers that
Mhm.
can do it. But geez, that tested my resilience, I'll tell you. When I was there, I would envy the people that worked in corporate at the steel plant, people that worked at the head office, because I felt like those are the problems I want to be solving. The
Mm.
strategy, the supply and demand, working out input costs and pricing and all of those things. That's what I wanted to do. But I couldn't see a way into that side of the operation. Now, I had never heard of McKinsey. Big consulting isn't really that well known in South
Absolutely.
Africa.
I think that's the case everywhere.
Okay.
When I got an offer from McKinsey and I called my family from the Frankfurt airport, I think the next question was, what exactly does your company do?
Yeah.
So nobody knew about McKinsey, or
I,
I mean overall as a management consulting.
like nobody still knows. No one in my family knows what I do, what I did for a living till today. And it was funny because when my mom would tell people in my family, "Oh, Ramona's going to work for McKinsey," they would say, "Oh, I'm sorry that engineering didn't work out for her." As though it was this big failure to go work for McKinsey. But anyway, hadn't heard about it. And
Mm.
then my husband now, we were dating at the time. We studied electrical engineering together. He was invited by
Mhm.
McKinsey to a dinner at the
Okay.
one and only hotel, which is super, super fancy. And as students, I was shocked. The invite was to Nobu for dinner. So he tells me, "Oh, some company called McKinsey invited me to dinner, but I'm not going to go." So I was like, "Oh, okay. So where are you invited for dinner?" And he says, "Nobu." And I was like, "I don't know who McKinsey is, but you better go for that dinner." And he went for the dinner and found out about consulting and came back and told me about it. And I was like, that sounds like my dream job. And so he applied and I helped him case prep, even though I wasn't familiar with what it was about. I just did it.
Mhm.
And then he got in a year ahead of me. And then I applied a year later, and the rest was history.
Okay. So your husband is also ex-McKinsey, or is he currently also working with McKinsey?
We were both at McKinsey for two
Mhm.
years.
Okay.
We overlapped with each other by a year, and then
Mhm.
he went off into finance, and
Okay.
I stayed.
Wow. It also told me where your case interview and your coaching seeds were already sown in very early in your career.
For sure, for sure. I mean, I knew I was going to love consulting and case
Mhm.
prep because I loved helping him with case prep. It was so
Mm.
much fun. That's what I always say to people. If you enjoy the case prep process, you will love being a consultant.
Absolutely. I think that's a thumb rule, literally, right? In fact, the other way around, if I put it, if you don't love it, then probably check whether you really want to be in consulting or not.
Yeah,
If you can't stand it for 40 minutes, then probably you will not stand it for a day. Yeah.
yeah,
Great,
exactly.
great. So then you applied and you got into the Joburg office, right?
Yes, I got into the Joburg office, but it wasn't simple for
Mm.
me because, I was talking about having to go work at the steel plant after graduating was a major demotivator for me.
Mhm.
And I'm someone that gets really, really excited and obsessed by big, hairy goals. Like I just want to achieve the big things. And when I realize at the end of this really, really tough degree, I would have to go work at a job that just wasn't for me. I lost motivation in my engineering degree.
Mm.
And I asked my parents if I could change degrees. They said, no, you started it, you finish it. And so then I felt stuck in this. Anyway, my grades suffered. I failed everything.
Mm,
Ironically, failed math. That was the thing that was letting me down, even though that was the reason I chose engineering, the
mm,
thing I loved growing up, the thing I was good at. And I failed 2 years of my engineering degree, which means that I graduated in 6 years when I should have graduated in 4 years. So
mm.
I definitely was not a clear-cut case for McKinsey.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mm,
it was tough. But then here's what happened, right? I knew that my GPA was not a reflection of my true abilities. And I knew that if I could just get a chance to write McKinsey's problem solving test,
mhm,
that I would pass and I
mm,
would get an interview. And I knew that if I got an interview, I could do well at it. So for
mm,
me, the biggest hurdle was how do I get someone at McKinsey to not judge me on paper and
mm,
give me a chance to just write the test? So I was very lucky in that the recruiting manager at the time that worked at my university, the University of Cape Town, was this
mm,
really, really sweet, nice person. And I went to talk to her at one of the recruiting events on campus. And we kind of just hit it off. And then
mm,
she said, we should talk sometime. Let's have a half an hour chat. I
mm,
spoke to her for half an hour. I told her my story about what's been going on with me. Plus, I had a whole lot of extracurriculars going on the side that
mm.
helped kind of support this thing around, oh, this person's an interesting candidate. They're contrarian, they're different, they're worth maybe giving a chance to. And so she let me write the problem solving test, and the rest was history.
Interesting. Interesting. You touched upon you doing a lot of extracurriculars, and I remember some of our previous conversations that you grew up as kind of a reserved introvert kid. So when did that transition happen? When did you think you came out of that shell?
Oh, wow. I don't think I'm out of the shell. I'm still reserved. I'm
Mm,
still introverted, like
mhm,
really extremely reserved and introverted. But I've learned the skills that it takes to function in
mm,
society today.
mm,
And the how, like how did I learn those skills was through beauty pageants, ironically.
mhm,
So as a kid, I was very shy. I spoke about how I felt like I could see who around me was getting respect. I could see
mhm,
it was really intelligent people. And so I started focusing on intelligence. I started focusing on my grades. But I could also see it was people who spoke well, the good
mm,
verbal communicators. So I wanted to build that skill set. I needed to build that skill set. I like doing things through high pressure. That's how I learn best. So I started entering beauty pageants because how else to put yourself under the stress of learning to speak well than to do it in front of hundreds of people
mm,
and in a bathing suit?
mm,
So I started entering these pageants during high school and I won quite a few of them. I was the youngest ever Miss India South Africa.
mhm,
I won that at 17. I then came to India to represent South Africa at Miss India South Africa.
mhm,
I was first runner up for Miss South Africa Teen.
mhm,
And then just before graduating, I won first runner up at Miss South Africa. And
mm,
then joined McKinsey a couple of months later. And then a month into my time at McKinsey, the Miss South Africa at that time called me and said, I don't want to go to Miss World. I want
mhm,
to go to Miss Universe. I want you to go to Miss World.
mm.
So
Okay.
1 month into my time at the firm, I told them I'm going to leave for 3 months to go do Miss World. So
Mm,
that's what I did. Left to China to represent South Africa at Miss World, and then came back
mm,
to finish the rest of my time as an analyst. But
mm,
by the time I had spoken to this recruiter, I had been very deep into this world of pageants. I ran my own charity,
mm,
and I used to do modeling work. on the side. So I had a part-time job effectively at the same time. So it just added more color to who I am as a person.
So I think some pillars of the consulting talent, right? So in terms of communication, in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit, right? So you are already demonstrating those, and that is probably
Exactly.
that visionary career lady identified, right? And despite of the GPA, she, kind of she recommended you for the problem solving test. And just for the audience of this generation, problem solving test is equivalent of the solve of the game that these days you guys have to do before we get into the interview stage. So when probably when I was also interviewing and when Ramona was interviewing, it was problem solving test. Yeah, it was the first round before you get into the interview. Great. Great. That's so inspiring, Ramona, and I think it just showcases, how you have really developed as a person, right? Not just as a professional. So yes, you joined McKinsey a month into it. You went into the preparation of Miss World. You came back. When I talk to a lot of consultants from top consulting company, one common theme is that it's not that we got into consulting and we felt like we belong here, right? A lot of time it's crash landing. A lot of time, it takes time for them to really believe that this is for me. This is where I belong. How was your landing into McKinsey?
So I think first and foremost, every single day that I walked into that office in Johannesburg, I felt like I was so lucky to be here.
Mm-hmm.
When you go behind the security doors where you have to scan your access card, every day I open that door, I just felt like I am so lucky to be here. I think it was because I never thought this would happen for me. I thought I would have this black mark against my name for the rest of my life, that I have this really, really bad GPA. How am I going to explain this for the rest of my life? I'm going to have to be justifying what happened when I was in my early 20s. So McKinsey saved me from what could have been, I think, a very, very bumpy future to this
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, certain place. So I recognize that every day, right? Then it's around, a lot of imposter syndrome comes in. Obviously, for me, I felt like I was surrounded by the cream of the crop, all the people that were part of Golden Key Society and, crazy high GPAs and high achievers in the most incredible ways. So there was definitely imposter syndrome around it.
Mm-hmm.
But I had this motivation of, they let me in, they gave me a chance. Like, this is it. This is the chance I wanted. This is the chance I got. You are gonna make it work. So it was hard, and I fumbled around and failed a lot. There's like the learning curve's really steep. I didn't really understand the demands of
Mm-hmm.
the career,
Mm-hmm.
but I very quickly came to terms with it. And I think it helped that my significant other at the time was also at the firm, because then I just lived and breathed McKinsey at a
Mm-hmm.
very crucial time. It was my first job ever. All my friends then became McKinsey people. And I just got very immersed in that environment. And after, say, a bumpy 8 months of trying to learn the toolkit, I became comfortable and confident.
Interesting. Would you want to talk about a little bit about any mentoring that you received at the firm?
So I was very lucky. This is what I say, I hear people go into consulting. I encourage them, like they choose McKinsey. They hear my story, they choose McKinsey. They go into it and they have a completely opposite experience to what I had. There's so much luck involved in how it plays out for you when you join the firm, because it depends on who you're staffed with,
Absolutely.
who your mentor, your assigned mentor is. We call it a DGL at McKinsey, the person that's assigned to take care of your development and advocate for you in reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Who that is makes a difference. It depends on the class that you start with. Do you make any friends in that group? So it varies. I was so lucky on all accounts. One of the things that made the biggest difference for me is that the person assigned to me as my official mentor, my DGL,
Mm-hmm.
was incredible. His name was Adam.
Mm.
He really took me under his wing.
Mm.
He was actually one of my interviewers
Okay.
during the cases. So he knew me a little bit, knew what my strengths are, and he knew what my development needs areas were.
Mm.
And I'll tell you this, ironically, I did 4 cases in final round. The case
Mm.
I did with him, I didn't finish it. I completely 100% bombed that case. It was embarrassing. I didn't know what to do. It was with him.
Mm.
Yet he became my DGL, and it all worked out so well because he saw things in that case that were small shortcomings, and he made sure that I would get staffed on projects to fill those gaps.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, and so many times it happens, right, that candidates tell us that they bomb the case, and despite of that, they go to the next round and they go and sometimes they get an offer. And I always tell them that, sometimes when we feel that we have bombed the case, probably it's coming from a mistake in the math or you getting stuck, right? But especially in the second round when you have senior interviewers, right? What they look for is much more than those tick in the boxes, right? What they are looking for is attitude. What they are looking for is communication skill, your resilience, right? Despite of getting stuck, are you able to bounce back? Yeah. So there's so many things, right? Because even in real life consulting, we get stuck, right? Not that every time we are able to solve a problem, we fail every time, right? But the point is, how do you handle that failure? How do you come out,
Mm.
right? So, yeah, so sometimes these are false signals and you end up getting pleasantly surprised that, okay, despite of this mistake, I made it. Yeah. But so amazing that this mentor of yours, kind of saw through those mistakes, right? Actually, and gave you an offer going forward, and of course, then took you under his wings and groomed you. That's amazing. Any particular project that you remember, which you feel right really kind of impacted you, or really where you learned a lot?
It's so, this was something that surprised me. When I first joined, I said, I want to do retail.
Hmm.
That's the kind of work I want to do because, you can work yourself up to like luxury retail, and then it's so fancy and nice. You get to work for LVMH or something. And I very quickly learned that it has nothing to do with the client or the industry that makes a study remarkable. It is the people you work with on it. It can
Absolutely.
be the
Hands down.
least sexy problem industry function, but if you have a good team, that is what makes the most interesting projects. So I very quickly, they said, you're an engineer, we're going to put you in mining. So I very quickly got niched into mining and energy work.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that over my whole time at the firm. I actually appreciated doing it that way, getting niched into something really fast, because that helped me during those first few months where you feel like I have nothing to add. I'm brand
Mm.
new. I have no credibility. The fact that I did have some engineering know-how, that I worked at a steel plant during my vacations, means that I could grasp concepts at the clients very quickly. I had a little bit of credibility already because I was an engineer. I did graduate from with that skill set. And so anyway, all my projects were in that space. So this might not sound interesting to you, is what I'm building up to, or to your audience, to the audience, but it was a very fascinating project for me. So we had this one, it was a highly confidential relationship between our client and another big player in industry to
Mm-hmm.
come to an agreement around something that would shape or impact the lives of every South African. It was something that was so controversial. Like I was working on this project, I would listen to it on the news on the way to work every day. And as a 22-year-old, to like I would just smile, like like to know that I was working on something that I
Mm.
was hearing about in the news was impact. I mean, that's impact.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, even when you're talking about it, it gives me a goosebump, right? So working something which is of national interest at the age of 22, and yeah, and listening about it on public media while you're working on it. Yeah, this is just amazing. It's almost like feels like a James Bond movie.
Yes. And you can't tell anyone about it. You can't
Yes,
tell your family about it. Like
right.
it's just your secret, you know?
And this gives that dopamine, right? This gives that high a lot of time in the firm when you do these kind of impactful projects. I remember one of the projects that I worked on was with the Prime Minister of European country. And a lot of time, these policy decisions, when we used to discuss, it used to give me that some kind of pleasure, right? That this decision that we are taking, it's going to impact like these 40 million people. Some of them are probably
Yeah.
serving me a breakfast in the morning. Some of them are making my bed in the hotel. Yeah. And all of these guys are going to get impacted, really impacted positively because of the some of the work that we are doing. So yeah, I mean, when you can relate your work, right? It feels so amazing. Yeah. And just for the audience, it's not that every time you get to do this kind of work, right? So just like any other profession, all the projects are different. But yeah, I think a lot of time you work on high impact projects, and it feels so amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's why I raised that point around, you're not always working on projects like this, but you can work on anything with good people. So just fine if you have a choice when you join, for all the people that are joining consulting companies in the next few months, really try to optimize around finding out who the good people are. And people talk. So all you have to do is ask
Right.
and then actively seek to get under those partners and managers.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That there's no doubt about it. I think one of the things that I always tell people when I coach them for the first 100 days when they're joining MBBs is that don't hunt for projects with sexy titles, because
Mm,
a lot of time this happens. Most of the big consulting companies have project portals where they list the projects. And I know so many people who will probably filter it by strategy, right? Do search like private equity, due diligence, or
exactly.
something like that, a 10-year long-term strategy, and they'll go and apply. So rather than that, it is so much more important to know who the partners are, what's his 180-degree feedback, or what's his performance has been, right? Because people on the project, I think that's probably the biggest determinant of what we will get out of the project. Yeah. So absolutely, no doubt about it. So Ramona, just taking this forward, so you spent a significant amount of time with the firm. So how has been your journey in McKinsey?
Yes. So I started as an analyst in the Joburg office. I was there for a year, 18 months or so. And then I left to go do my MBA at Berkeley in San Francisco.
Was it
And
company
then,
sponsored MBA, firm sponsored MBA?
yes,
Okay.
firm sponsored MBA. And then after graduating, I joined the San Francisco office and I was there as an associate.
Mm-hmm.
When I joined as an associate, it was my mission to make engagement manager as quickly as possible. Like I couldn't wait to be a manager for many reasons. We can talk more about that if you want. And then I was promoted in just under a year. And then I was an engagement manager for about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then I decided to move internally at McKinsey. So I joined the learning team
Mm-hmm.
and took care of senior partners. So I designed and ran learning programs for the about 800 or so senior partners at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I also ran a couple of programs for partners, also the whole partnership group, but my area of specialization was senior partners.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was there for a few years and then left to join another consulting company as head of talent, a boutique consulting company,
Mm-hmm.
and then left that to go off on my own and democratize the consulting toolkit, which is what I do now.
Great, great. I think that's a pretty loaded answer. I'm just going to break it up a little bit, yeah. And
Yeah.
there are so many things that I would like to know about all these phases that you spoke about. So first thing is you got selected for the company sponsored MBA, right? Not all the people who are analysts get that opportunity, right? So how did the process look like at that point of time?
Yes. So I was a little bit of a unique case in that I wasn't part of an established class when I joined. I
Hmm.
just joined with one other person from my university.
Okay.
But then what happened was when they were deciding on who gets MBA offers or
Hmm.
direct to associate offers, the two of us were looped in with the class that was ahead of us,
Hmm.
which means we were made this offer 6 months early, basically.
Hmm.
Not only that, but I did get a direct to associate offer. And in South Africa, in the Johannesburg office at that time, if you took the direct to associate offer, you could get a cash bonus in lieu of going to do the MBA. But for me, it was a no-brainer to go and do the MBA, especially coming from South Africa, having an undergraduate degree that isn't well known around the world,
Hmm.
and this like terrible GPA. I wanted a chance to like scrub that or,
Hmm.
get a redo in some way.
Yeah.
So doing an MBA was an obvious choice. Chose to do it, and then it became about, okay, like, where do I go? Where do I go now?
Yeah, so I think you have been very modest. You spoke about you found you feel that you are lucky that you got into McKinsey, and you were also offered this MBA or associate 6 months prior to your batch. I think one thing that you are probably not talking about is performance, probably, right? So you were high performer, right, to get a lot of these privileges.
Somewhat, Gaurav. I'll tell you what
Say it,
happened. So
say it.
yeah,
Don't be
yeah,
that modest.
yeah. Well, no, when I joined my first engagement, I struggled because I didn't realize what it meant to I didn't realize what it meant to have a job. First of all, it was my first job, but also in consulting specifically, where you're not told what to do. You're expected to do things, to come up with we call it ownership, I
Right.
didn't understand what ownership meant. So I was just waiting around every day for my engagement manager to tell me what to do. And I also expected that I would be able to go home at 5 p.m. every day. So it was a shock to me on my first engagement. And I feel sorry for that engagement manager because he was wondering what is wrong with this person. He was from the US. He had come as an engagement loan to the Johannesburg office. So he was
Mhm.
used to working with all the American business analysts, and now he was stuck with me. The first engagement didn't go well. But then after the first engagement, I went away for 3 months to do Miss
Mm.
World. Then I came back and they didn't reset my tenure. So I was still being rated as a 4 month analyst. That engagement, I had another American engagement manager. And about 2 weeks in, she pulled me aside and said, "How do you think you're doing?" And I said, "I think I'm doing okay." And she was like, "No, no, you're not doing okay." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And then she taught me this really important concept that I remembered forever. And it's in marketing, you talk about customer delight. You want to
Mm.
delight your customers. That means slightly exceed expectations every single time.
Mm.
I learned that that's what you need to do as a consultant. It's the under promise, over deliver effectively.
Absolutely.
But everything you do, anything that someone asks you to do or that you decide to do should never be to expectation. It always has to be even just a little bit higher than expectation.
Yeah.
And that's basically what she taught me. It's like every slide that I made, just think about how might I make this 10% better before you click send in an
Mm.
email. How might I make this 10% better? And like that, my performance changed. Like that was like a switch in my head, 10% better. And
Mm.
from there, I was, consistently rated. We used to call it back then tracking plus. Tracking
Mm.
is meets expectation, tracking plus was
Right.
exceeds slightly. And then distinctive was like cream of the crop.
Mm.
And from that point onwards, I would alternate between tracking plus and distinctive. Because I also felt like I didn't want to be distinctive for too long consistently, because it means maybe I'm over delivering, and if I cut back just a little bit, I'd still be over delivering, but I could take back a little bit more of a life.
We'll come to the work-life balance part. Let me just finish this this career journey that you spoke about. So you got into MBA, you came out of it, and then you spoke about you couldn't wait to become engagement manager, right? So tell us a little bit more about that.
This is something my desire to be an engagement manager goes back to when I was an analyst. And I hear this tension a lot with consultants that I work with. Analysts say, well, what's the real difference between an analyst and an associate? It feels like as an analyst, I'm doing the same work as an associate, but I'm getting paid half as much. And the answer you always get back is, well, associates have more emotional intelligence. They have better client hands, meaning they work better with clients. They're better communicators. They have that kind of maturity in that space. And that analysts are more talented on the analytical side of things. For me, it was the opposite. As an analyst, I had a lot of the associate-like communication skills that I built during my time through pageants and all of the other things I was busy with. I wasn't that strong on the like Excel modeling side of the world, because ironically, it's like as an engineer, you're busy in MATLAB and you're doing Python, C++, all these other kinds of programming languages. I never used Excel in my whole engineering degree. The first time I opened Excel was at McKinsey. And that DGL of mine, that mentor, he knew this. And so he made me get staffed on every single project I was in charge of the model. Every single project for a year of my time was in Excel. So by the time I ticked the box on Excel, I felt ready. I felt like an established associate versus like an established analyst. So when I got back out of my MBA into McKinsey, back again, I felt like I felt like I was done on the toolkit. When you look at at McKinsey, we call it the leadership development model, the LDM. It's the rubric that tells you what skills you need to have acquired role, so that you know when you're ready to get promoted from one to the other to the other. It's a really nice indicator of if you've mastered all of the skills in the associate column, it means you're ready to step up into EM. So I felt ready for that next challenge.
That's interesting. And another perspective that I also hear from people who joined top consulting firms as an analyst stage is, right? Sometimes it's just too much time before they actually can become manager. And of course, for various reasons, they feel that they are ready much earlier. And so 2 years or 3 years sometimes of being an analyst and again becoming an associate or a consultant before becoming manager, it becomes a too high of a time commitment before you can start leading the project, right? So there can be a frustration as well.
Totally. And I'll say this, Gaurav, like I knew what I wanted and I didn't wait for it to happen. I didn't wait for the usual system to make it happen, because the usual system would say 2 years analyst, 2 years associate, then EM. I was in the driver's seat of it. So as soon as I got back from my MBA, joined the San Francisco office, I told my professional development manager, which is the person that helps you get staffed on your next thing. I told every manager that I worked with from that point, my goal is to make EM in a year. I need you to customize your feedback and your coaching to make that happen for me. Don't give me feedback as though I'm on a 2-year trajectory. Give me feedback as though I'm on a 1-year trajectory. Be really, really harsh, specific, push me, give me step up opportunities so that this happens for me. And that's what happened. People knew about it. I wasn't just waiting for it to happen.
And this is so amazing, right? So This is exactly, I think everyone should do. Because a lot of time people have an impression that all the professional services company, the career projection, etc., are taken care of. Yeah, there's so such a huge support system around it, trainings, mentoring, etc. But I always tell them that though all these things are there, yeah, but you are always in charge of your career, right? You need to
Absolutely.
design it, and more importantly, you need to communicate, right? You need to tell people that, I want to be on fast trajectory, so give me that feedback. When you achieve something, you need to blow your own trumpet. Nobody is going to blow that for you. You are on your own,
Absolutely.
right? Fortunately or unfortunately, consulting is a very lonely career. So though you are always surrounded with people, but those people always change. Unlike in an
Mm,
industry where when you actually form a bond over the time and people take care of each other, that doesn't happen in consulting or investment banking, all these advisory services. So you
mm,
have to ensure that you are in charge. What is it that you want? You need to communicate that. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. Plus, on top of
absolutely.
that, everybody is a cream talent. Everybody wants to move fast. So there's a inherent competition, right? So nobody's going to slow down for you. You have
Mm,
to relate to yourself and communicate your needs to people around you. Amazing.
absolutely.
Great, great. I think that this is just amazing. One question I wanted to ask you: you did an MBA in US. What made you kind of make a decision that you want to then join McKinsey in US versus coming back to Joburg?
Yes. I think I had a unique circumstance happening here. My husband now and I
Mhm,
were dating back then. And he was a year ahead of me at McKinsey. He also was offered direct to associate and the MBA offer, but he wanted to, like, his dream was to go into finance. And he had a job offer lined up with a company in the US.
mhm,
So he was deciding, should I stay at McKinsey fast track to partner, or should I go and do this thing in the US? He
mhm.
chose to go do this thing in the US.
Okay.
And so for me, it wasn't a choice after that. When he decided to go to the US, I knew I would do my MBA in the US and then
Mhm,
and then stay wherever he was. It
mhm,
was touch and go for us, though, I'll tell you that much, in that we just got married, we moved to the US. I
mhm,
was trying to get into MBA programs, so I applied to Bay Area MBA programs, and there's only two, Stanford and Berkeley.
right.
I applied to both of them, didn't get into Stanford, got waitlisted at Berkeley, then got into an early start program at NYU
Mhm,
for their MBA. So I decided to go to New York. So I
mhm.
go to New York. Berkeley still has me on the wait list. On the first day in New York, I get a voice message from Berkeley saying, "Oh, sorry, we missed you. We'll talk to you on Monday." So I had to
Okay.
wait the whole weekend. I went to NYU the first day of school. They were, doing all the rah rah, like, you are the best of the best of the best. And, who's here from the place that's furthest away? And it was me. All this, like, knowing at the back of my head, I think I'm going to be going to Berkeley. That evening, they called me again and said, you're in to Berkeley. So anyway, I got to go to NYU for one day and then went
You are a
back.
NYU one day alum.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, okay. And then you decided to kind of join McKinsey in US because your partner was also in US.
Yes. Yeah.
Another element that you touched upon is the internal transfer. And this conversation a lot of time comes up when I'm coaching somebody who is trying to transition out of the firm or trying to look for other opportunities, right? Not a lot of people know about the internal transfers. Yeah. So how does this happen?
Yes, yes. So, when you look on the internal portal
Hmm.
where they post all the job positions, I was constantly like poking around through there to see what are the options
Mhm.
available that I might be interested in.
Just quick question, but what triggered that?
Very good question. So, I just had my first child,
Okay.
and I was not expecting it to be as much of a disruptor to my day to day naively. Maybe it's because the people that I saw around me doing it were making it look easy. But I really was just knocked out of everything I expected of this situation. So
Mm,
I really, really struggled. I came back after maternity leave as an engagement manager, getting ready for AP promotion, starting to think about and collecting
mm,
what I needed to get done in order to put forward for that promotion. I struggled with the lack of like the hours. I felt like my capacity had dropped significantly for what I could give to the role, especially when you work in mining at the mining and energy space. Your clients are not in the
mm,
big cities. It's in the middle
mm,
of nowhere. It's very hard to get there. Anyway, what was happening was that I wasn't seeing my 6-month-old baby for
mm,
days. And
mm,
my husband at the time was in finance and he was also working crazy hours. So it was just it wasn't working. We couldn't make it work. I felt like I wasn't on top of my work the way I used to be,
mm,
even though all of my supporters, all of the people I was working with were telling me, you're doing an amazing job. I don't know. Why are you struggling? Why are you saying you're struggling when you're delivering to our expectation? The
mm,
thing is, I wasn't delivering to my own expectation. And I could never figure that out. And so people struggle with this and they'll tell you, okay, fine, lower your bar, lower your own expectations. I think I could have if I stuck it out for long enough, but I just wanted to, I needed to get out of there. I needed to get to like stable ground where I felt like I was doing a good job. And I
mm,
just didn't
mm,
feel like I was. So I decided to look internally because I love the firm. I loved McKinsey and it was going to be a temporary thing till
mm,
I became stable and figured out this until I could reconcile this like the
mm,
other people's expectations of me to my expectations of me. And
mm.
that's when I went internal.
Just something came to my mind. It's an amazing journey, right? For someone at one point of time, that same person from external perspective, for example, your grades, etc., weren't that great. You failed twice, right? But in your mind, you rated yourself much higher than the external indicators, right?
Mm,
That person probably at the age of whatever, 17, 18, to this level where exactly reverse thing is happening right now. Others are telling you that you are superb, you are great, yeah, but you feel that you are not there. Same person, but over the time they completely reverse perspectives.
I wonder why. That is really fascinating. And I think it's a double-edged sword in that one of the greatest things that McKinsey gave me
Mm,
was this recalibration of what is possible, what
mm,
one person can achieve, and what a team can achieve in a given amount of time. And it's a double-edged sword in that it's after you understand how much is actually possible when you're putting in 110%,
mm,
when you fall anything short of that big
mm.
goal, or that big possibility, then you feel like you failed.
It's also about the kind of image that we create about ourselves, right? And then we always want to live up to that. Interesting. Okay.
Good observation. Good observation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a visual thinker, so in my mind, there came kind of a line, right? And for some reason, I felt that that world's expectation or what world felt about you, probably that line remained straight, right? But you are below that line when you started, and then you're above that line, right? So you really
Mm,
crossed that line. So I don't know, for some reason that visual came to my mind. So I just thought of
mm.
sharing. So yeah, I think the discussion is getting probably too deep. It's becoming a coaching session. No, great. So I think tell us about your passion for L&D, passion for coaching, passion for really that that you feel that this consulting toolkit needs to go out and it shouldn't get restricted to only consulting world. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about what you are currently doing.
Yes. Okay. So my passion for learning and development became obvious to me at McKinsey, where I always say I felt like I was a student. My whole time at the firm, I felt like a student because when you're staffed, you're learning at an accelerated pace. So much so that when I did my MBA, I felt bored from the speed. It was too slow.
Right.
But then also, other than that, there's all of these courses and things you can go for, the trainings or whatever. It was just my favorite part, everyday learning, watching others, getting feedback, the formal training, all of it. So when I was looking for, okay, what do I want to do if it's not consulting? For me, it was I want to give the gift of this learning and development to others. I want to do that for a living because that's the best part of being a consultant is the learning. And that's when I moved into partner learning.
Mhm.
But I wrote about this in my business school essays when they say, why do you want to come to business school?
Mm.
And I wrote about it in there and I said, I want to democratize the consulting toolkit.
Oh, wow.
These
So you had that vision at that time itself.
I had the vision as an analyst. I
Wow.
felt I
Mm.
felt I could see the value of the
Mm.
toolkit because we would go into our clients and
Mm.
effectively what they're paying for us for is the toolkit. They don't have the toolkit, we have the toolkit, so we do the work for them, leveraging the toolkit.
Mm.
And it was one of those things where I could see how highly valued it was, but it wasn't that difficult to get it. Like to if you just focused on building it, it's just that our clients weren't in an environment that was focused on teaching the
Mm.
toolkit. But if they had it, they would be able to do a lot of these things themselves. I could also see how much ex-consultants got paid when you leave because what are you paying for? You're paying for the fact that these people come pre-trained with the toolkit.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
like it's like paying a handyman. You become this jack of all trades as a consultant, and you can take a consultant and put them into any environment, and they dig into their toolbox, which is the toolkit, and pull out all of the things they need to have impact immediately, you
Mhm.
know. So I felt like not everyone gets to go into consulting, wants to go into consulting, but if they could have this toolkit, it would set them up for the rest of their careers.
Mm.
If you had this, you would be able to get promoted faster, make more money, get to do the exciting work that you want to do. And it shouldn't just be limited within these boundaries of consulting firms.
Absolutely.
So after I had done, I felt like I immersed myself in learning and development on the like teaching side at McKinsey. As head of talent, I got exposure to building the toolkit and understanding the struggles people are having as consultants. I then felt ready to go off and do it on my own, to do the thing that I said I wanted to do in my MBA essay. I was ready. I was credible, I was
Mhm.
experienced and ready.
Okay. Interesting. And where do you see yourself going ahead with this for the next, let's say, 5 years?
Oh, I love that. Yes. So right now, so my company is called Master the Toolkit.
Mhm.
And you will remember from this, it's a common phrase that we used in consulting to say, have they mastered the toolkit yet? Have you mastered the toolkit yet? And so what I have done is I've designed learning modules around the core aspects and skills of the toolkit. And my goal for the next 5 years is to take those lessons to as many people as I can. And I
Mhm.
do that through one-on-one coaching. I run cohort programs
Mhm.
and I run programs for corporates.
Interesting. Good. All the best. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners would find your toolkit very, very useful. So consulting has always been part of your life, right? I can see that right from your first professional day till now, and probably it'll stay like that. One question I wanted to ask you is, what are some of the myths that you feel people have about consulting?
Mm, okay. I think, I mean, I would like to ask you, and then we can bust some of them together.
Mhm.
But one of the big ones I know is that lifestyle is really bad.
Mhm.
People think that it's going to be tough, long hours, and that's true. So, what I always say to people when they're scared of the lifestyle in consulting, they say consulting is more than a job, less than a life. Is that true? More than a job, less than a life?
We can say that.
Yes. More than a job, less than a life. So you do go into it knowing that you're giving a little extra, right? The thing that I loved about it and how I made lifestyle sustainable is that I knew that when I was staffed on something, I would give it my everything and it would take over all of my social life, all of it. And I would tell people so. My friends knew, my family knew when I was staffed on something, it's a bonus if I will be able to see you, but I'll see you on the other side. It felt
Mm.
like, I used to say, it felt like you take a deep breath and then you go down under and you just focus on delivering for that
Mm.
period. But what I would do is book time on either end of my engagements to always take time off. I would take 1 week if it was a 1 month engagement, or like up to a month if it's a longer engagement. I took a lot of time off. Paid leave, unpaid leave, going for trainings, like very deliberately scheduling training sessions that
Right.
I could go and attend, just and conferences, the industry conferences, and just so I would have these breaks in between. And I
Mhm.
call it lifestyle on aggregate.
Mhm.
So it wasn't good lifestyle on a day-to-day basis, but it was on average a decent lifestyle. I got to do,
Absolutely.
big chunks of really fun things during these big breaks that I took off. I could learn new skills. I'm an artist, so I would spend a lot of time painting, and I'd have multiple days to do these like rest periods where you can fill your cup. So I think you can make lifestyle work. You just need to change your definition of what good lifestyle is.
And I think it's just probably the unit of time, right? If you measure it on a, if your measurement unit is day, then yes, probably in consulting you'll have insane hours. But if you
Mm,
extend it to, let's say, 6 months, right, wherein probably 4 months you will be staffed, but there will be 2 months of either break or a bench or training, right? You are saying it kind of evens out, and more so if you consciously do it. So absolutely, absolutely.
what other myths have you heard?
So one of the myth that I've heard is about consultants always work on strategy projects. Yeah. And I do tell people that strategy consulting, management consulting, all these words we use interchangeably, right? But if you see the the current scheme of things, and it's evolving, of course, every day, right? In management consulting, even if it is McKinsey, right? Yeah, it's not that every time you can visualize yourself sitting shoulder to shoulder with CXOs, right? There is a lot of implementation work, operations work, PMO works, right? That comes as a deal, right? Along with that, you of course do strategy work. Yeah. Another famous myth is consultants are smarter, high IQ, and I always tell them that it's not about that inherent IQ or being smart, right? It's about the toolkit, what we develop overall, right? There's so many smarter and much more capable people that I have seen on the other side of the table, the client side. The smartness or IQ or EQ, it's not something that is restricted to consultants. But yes, I think consulting as an organization, because the only secret sauce over the being people, the investment in ensuring that this toolkit is developed is very high. As a result of that, you see that in few years' time, the person develops so much that you start seeing him as a that polished professional, or we call it a rubber band effect, right? So 4 years of consulting will give you 7, 8 years of industry experience, kind of an leverage. So that
Absolutely.
happens because of the effort that has been put in. But otherwise, it has nothing to do with being smart or born smart or being kind of born privileged.
Absolutely.
People from various backgrounds I've seen getting into consulting. One of my in my cohort, I had a batchmate from Scandinavia who was a sports person, right? Had absolutely no knowledge. I mean, he used to ask me in some of the training what is the full form of EBITDA and all that. So, no business knowledge. I've seen people who are author of the books. I've seen opera singers. I've seen, I mean, I've coached myself around 7, 8 US Marines. So people with various different backgrounds, people with various different traits, skills, they can all fit in consulting. They do fit in fact, right? Because it's the attitude, right? It's the ability and you know the willingness to put in effort on the problem, right? That is needed.
Yes.
Most
Yeah.
of the other things are taught, and people struggle over the first year to reach to that level. So that's another thing that I keep hearing. Does that resonate with you?
Yes, for sure. I like what you were saying about, what does it take to be good at this? And it isn't just raw IQ. Something that I always say is that when you've truly mastered the toolkit of the soul, it's coming to any problem and rolling up your sleeves and saying, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. It's just having that mindset around I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out, you
Hmm.
know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ramona, you have started your career in African continent, right? Then you spent time in US and now you're in Australia. So in consulting and the other work also that you are doing coaching, right? So you have seen these three continents, be it consulting side or generally from a professional side of things, right? What's the difference that you see in cultures?
I think at McKinsey, naturally, because it's an American company, regardless of where you go, there is an
Hmm.
underlying tone of American culture
Company
in the way
culture, right?
things, yeah,
Absolutely.
of the way things operate. But on top of that is layered the regional differences.
Right.
So in the Johannesburg office at that time, it was far more American than the rest of the companies, but it was South African in that I found it quite formal, pretty
Hmm.
formal. You wear a suit every day to work. It's corporate, proper corporate. And when you had a problem solving session with the partners, it was scary. It was a little bit scary for some reason. It could also be because I was younger, I was new, I was an analyst,
Right.
but it was a little bit more hierarchical. Then I joined the San Francisco office, which is a little bit more on the other extreme naturally than the rest of the
I was going to say
US.
that the other office was the other extreme.
That's what I'm saying, right? So the San Francisco office was casual. You wear jeans, even when you go to your clients,
Yeah.
everyone is casual. Sneakers, jeans, a lot of our tech clients, everyone's wearing workout clothes because the you're working out during meetings and things. Mostly the clients, we were very busy, but you need to fit in with your clients. You can't dress very formal and things when they are. And then the other thing with the San Francisco culture was it wasn't hierarchical at all. It
Mm.
was so casual. The partners were the same as the EMs. Like there's no feeling of, oh, we're having a big problem solving with a partner. It was
Mm.
very
Mm.
casual. There was this one senior partner. He's funny, funny guy. I met him for the first time. And we were meeting, we were having this big conference at a hotel. So I met him at this hotel and he comes there and he's wearing black shorts, a black
Oh,
vest, and a whole lot of gothic jewelry. So I say to him, I was like, "Oh, why are you dressed like that? Is it?" And then I was like, "Oh yeah, it's Halloween. Are you dressed up for Halloween?" And he's like, "No, this is how I this is how I always dress." I don't know. That was just so shocking to me. But yeah, anyway, it was fun and very liberal.
And how does that compare with your Australia experience?
Wow. Australia is also very laid back, I'd
Mm.
say. People, here, I mean, people are working very hard in consulting, but there is also they prioritize a life.
Mm.
They're out surfing and running and things like that are really important. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Apart from, I ended up joining McKinsey in Frankfurt office, but other offer that I had was from BCG Sydney, and that time I spoke to a lot of people from Australia office. Yeah, and that's a consistent theme that emerged, the relaxed, laid back kind of a culture. Yeah, I think probably at that point of time, I chose the busyness over the relaxation. Anyways, yes, the decisions are always right or wrong in hindsight, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's an amazing, probably transitionary sentence. Because the next question that I wanted to ask was is looking back, if you have to change one career decision, what would you change?
Mm. That is, I'm searching hard to find something I would change,
Mm-hmm.
but I think in hindsight, there were very, very difficult periods that I went through. But in hindsight, I wouldn't change how the timing of it all played out, to be honest.
You want to elaborate a little?
So I could say, let's see. There were times in my career where I was debating, should I go, should I stay, should I go, should I stay, constantly, always. I feel like as much as I say I love my time at the firm, you can talk to anyone on a daily basis. It's like sometimes it feels like everybody is borderline on the verge of quitting constantly.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah, yeah. That's a very that's a very common theme.
Yeah, exactly. And somehow I get it from the perspective of the companies because if you're too happy in a place from the truly capitalist perspective, are you
Mm.
getting paid too much? Anyway, whatever. So there were many, many times I was constantly debating whether I should go or whether I should stay.
Mm.
And they were even after being an analyst when I was in the MBA program, I thought about leaving. But I chose to go back into consulting then because I couldn't see anything else that offered the thrill that consulting offers. The
Mm.
highs of that job are so incredible, just and so often, just
Mm.
constantly, because you're doing such high intensity work that the feeling of achievement, especially when you value achievement, you get
Mm.
it all the time. And it's like a drug that I couldn't see getting anywhere else in industry. So I decided to stay. Could I have left being a consultant earlier than I did? Moving internally earlier?
Mhm.
No, because I wanted to be a partner. I think I could do it. I had things lined up for that to
Mm.
happen for me. It was very, very hard to walk away. I had to think about it a lot around like, there's this job I really love. I think I can do it. I have supporters to get me there. I had a lot of partners that I had worked with that knew me well and would make space for me to get
Mm.
promoted if I wanted. The money is very hard to walk away from. When you do the lifetime value of a role in consulting, you're walking away from tens of millions of dollars. It's
Okay.
so hard to disconnect from that. I wouldn't have left sooner. I was excited. I was ready. Should I have stayed longer as a consultant? I don't think so. I would have burned out. Like my family would have seen the worst of me. Did I leave learning and development at McKinsey at the right time? I don't know. This was funny. No one knows the story, but I was waking up every day kind of feeling like I don't want to do this anymore. I'm dreading it. I have this meeting coming up. I don't want to go for it. And I then just I was sitting in bed, literally, this is what happened. I was sitting in bed just thinking, I don't want to do this meeting today. And then I said, I'm not going to actually, I'm quitting today.
Wow.
And my husband was like, I'm sorry, what? I was like, I'm going to quit. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to quit because I just couldn't, like, it's not supposed to be this way. It's not, when you do a high intensity job, you need to be doing it for some reason.
Yeah.
And sometimes your body knows more than your mind knows that it's not working.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you. 100%.
Yeah.
One fine day you quit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I just have a couple of more questions. One, so much of your journey is influenced by your participation in beauty pageants. What if that part wouldn't have happened?
Ooh, nothing would have worked out the way it worked out. Everything played out just the way it was supposed to because of that. When I applied at McKinsey and I even went through the interviews, before I went into the case interviews, you were nervous, right? Like this is the scariest thing you've ever done because it's like no other job interview in industry. You're put to the test and on the spot like nothing else. I would think to myself, I can do this. It's only one person and I'm fully clothed because I had this perspective of how scary and intense it was answering these really difficult questions on stage, on live TV, in front of a live audience. This wasn't that bad compared to that. So, kind of when I started interviewing for consulting and even in the role, I felt ready. I felt like I was tried and tested before. Like I've done hard things before, so I can do this. And then
Mhm.
consulting kind of just kept building on that. Because every day in consulting, you can say about the prior day, I did hard things. I can do this. And the amount of hard things that you do just gets more and more and more, and your confidence just grows and grows and grows.
That's amazing. That's loaded. Good. I'll finish off with a question about advice. So, what advice would you give to the consulting aspirants?
If consulting is right for you, it is a no-brainer career to go into. It is magical. It's an accelerator. You will do things you never thought possible. You will test yourself in ways that you never thought possible. You will do it in the trenches with the most amazing people that will be part of your network for the rest of your life. The caveat is if it's right for you. And if you're enjoying the casing process, then it's a really high indicator that it's going to be right for you. If you're an early consultant and you're having a good time, on average, you're going to have hard days sometimes, but if you're still enjoying it and enjoying some of the aspects of it, then it's for you. But always have this radar on of, is this for me? And I always say this, is
Hmm.
this for you? Not are you for this? Don't tie your identity and your self-worth and your capability for whether this one role and this one career is good for you. If you're in it and you're not liking it, it doesn't say anything bad about you. You take your gifted, talented self to the environment that you can thrive in. It just means consulting wasn't it. That's it.
That's an amazing perspective, Ramona. So, on that note, let me thank you again for your time, your advice, and the number of value bombs that you actually gave us today. It's great talking to you. Again, thanks a lot for your vulnerability. Thanks a lot for being so clear, concise, and direct. We wish you all the best in master your toolkit and all the initiatives that you have in mind. We hope that we will actually be associated in being consultant. We would continue to mentor some of our people. Again, yeah, thanks a lot for everything.
Thank you. Thanks, Gaurav. Thank you for having me, and thanks to everyone for listening.
Thanks. And that's a wrap on today's episode of Unfiltered. I hope you liked it. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you have liked the content, please press like button, subscribe to this podcast, and also share it in your network. And please do comment with your point of views because we would love to understand your feedback so that we can improve and get you better episodes as we go forward. Also, special thanks to today's guest for dropping so many value bombs candidly and very, very openly. Last but not the least, If you are someone who is working in consulting or a consulting aspirant, do not forget to join Being Consultants WhatsApp community. It is world's biggest community with more than 2,000 community members from 40 plus different countries helping out each other in their consulting journey. So until I see you next, keep tracking.